Hi, everybody. This is the Embodied Business Inspired Brain podcast, and it's our first show of 2025. Hi, Anne. How's it going?
Going well, Chantel, and happy 2025, everyone. I didn't quite resonate with me that it is the first show of 2025.
I know. It's kind of crazy. So we hope you enjoyed our 50th show. That was such a pleasure to be with all of those wonderful women and reflect back on the impact that the nervous system has had on their work, their developing their body of work, their personal lives. So if you haven't checked out episode 50, you should do that after you listen to this one. It's going to be kind of a short episode this time. We wanted to just share with you something that we're focusing on this year and a couple of things that we have in the works, some of our offers that are reflecting this really powerful focus, which is women's health and entrepreneurship. And Anne and I are both really, really committed to this in a variety of ways, coming at it from a few different powerful angles. So we're going to share with you why we think it's important and give you just a little bit of a teaser, really, of what we're going to be talking about and focusing on in our work this year. But first, as always, what's in process, what's in progress, what's in progress, what's in process. I can't sometimes remember what comes first. Not that it matters, but I haven't really given this much thought. But since I did the intro, you get to answer first.
That's great. So goodness, I have started this year off with lots of birthday celebrations.
You sure have.
Within my family. And so that has been very busy. So sort of come off the time of the holiday season, jump into school, because that's my season of life right now is a bit around school for my younger children. And that has felt busy, but I've also had these moments. What I will reflect on this past year is my ability to be in joy at my family gatherings is just no longer even an issue. Or it's no longer even like I think about planning family gatherings differently. It's not that I never enjoyed family gatherings before, but it's that I did sometimes notice myself retreating more at times because it was like too much. And my husband has a large family. So when we have a family gathering, it's like 20 people easy. So
yeah, that's a lot.
I come from a smaller family, so I'm just like not as used to that. But yeah, it's really been okay. I've actually also felt connected more to connecting to my mother-in-law, which feels really sweet. And yeah, that is one of the things as I reflect on the nervous system work is just that ability to, disconnect more from work because I do enjoy my work, but I enjoy my life too, right? And I enjoy those moments of celebration with family and kiddos. And so I do find like, it doesn't mean that I might not feel overwhelmed and I might not, step away, but I feel like in the past I would have sort of at times stepped away more. And then at one point I did notice I was getting like dysregulated with some craziness because I was cooking. I basically made a pasta bar for, 22 people. As, everybody wants our pasta little with lots of kids and sometimes there's requests. So just trying to make it as simple as possible for people to just get what they want and get fed. And I was able to just recognize it and then just kind of roll with it, move on. So that was a really positive experience for me.
Yeah. I'm so glad. Yeah. I mean, when you said you had hosted 20 plus people for Dominic's birthday, I was like, oh my God, it sounds terrible.
Yeah. And then the very next day we had his kids' party. So there wasn't like.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah, well, I can totally relate to this. This is not what I really want to share about what's in process and progress, but I just want to have a moment of relating and connection around this because I think it's something I have struggled with too. Is I definitely do the like agitated Heisman long arm retreat kind of thing when I know there's going to be lots of people, even a few people. I can be really disorienting and not pleasant for me. And that has begun to shift for me too. And I definitely noticed that this year with hosting Christmas twice here at the house. So I can relate to feeling a different kind of just a softness around that I haven't experienced, I think, in my adult life. So I can relate to that. I think just what's really exciting for me right now, which is so funny, is that I've been on my bicycle for like 13 days in a row. And I've ridden a minimum of like 4.5 miles every day, some days up to 8.5 miles. And I've never really been, I mean, I'm a motorcyclist, so two wheels is the thing, but bicycling and motorcycling to me have not even been relatively in the same, universe. But my partner, Max, is a huge bicyclist and has started to return to bicycling after a really devastating injury a few years ago. And I was just like, what if I just get on my bike again? I actually rebuilt my Schwinn during COVID. I took it all apart and sanded it and painted it and then rebuilt it and then had a bike shop do the things I couldn't do. So it's this very cool kind of sentimental bike and it's beautiful teal color and it's got stickers all over it. And anyway, I'm fond of the bike. I'm just not I've never been like a bicycle rider, but I'm addicted now. I can't imagine missing a day. And my mom is visiting and I made my mom bring her bicycle and we bicycled together yesterday. And I've been on 3 bicycle rides with my daughter. We went Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And now it just feels like every day it's like fitting in exercise. But there's even something more compelling to it because it's both physically invigorating, but it's such a nice reset for me. And I usually do it in the middle of the day. So it's great to get out of the house. It's been great for me mentally, emotionally. Yeah. And I find it really steadying for my nervous system. I'm finding that my days, I have a little bit more capacity, sustained capacity through my day because of this break, it's kind of chilly here. I mean, it's not cold, but I have been bicycling in 38-degree weather. So that's not warm. So that's been great. So I'm just enjoying that for what it is and, not sure where it will lead or what will happen, but it sure feels good. So that's what's going on over here. Yeah.
Yeah. We could keep talking about on this, but
we totally could.
Let's dive into the women's health.
Yeah, women's health. So we decided back in, I think, probably November, out of a whim of inspiration, that we were going to host a retreat. And we've done retreats before. We have not done an international retreat. And this is just a point Ann and I have talked a lot about. This is a little bit of a spoiler alert, writing a book about women's health and entrepreneurship, which we are percolating on. And we wanted to do a retreat, and we have one planned and scheduled, and you can sign up, and we'll share details with you about that in Mexico at this beautiful retreat center called Tailwind Jungle Lodge. And I've been there. I've hosted a retreat there before. It's really a special place. And what we decided is that we would make this retreat focused on women's health and entrepreneurship. And as women, this is something that's been, it's very important to us. And so part of, creating the retreat structure was that we created a retreat membership, which includes our Elevated Entrepreneur Program, 12 months in this beautiful program. And as we're kind of coalescing these ideas, we were like, well, let's make 2025 focused on women's health for the Embodied Business Institute. And so that's what we're doing. So it just feels appropriate that our first podcast of the year is introducing this theme, this focus, and we want to share with you a little bit about why it feels important and what we're going to be exploring, at least from a pretty zoomed out view. So with all of that said, Ann, I'll turn it over to you to share. I know you want to share why you feel like it's important. So go ahead and take it away.
Absolutely. So I essentially first became an entrepreneur to solve a health problem.
Yeah.
I became a Pilates teacher, which then very, very quickly dove into me opening my own business and studio at the age of 23 to solve a problem essentially of back pain. It was when I was only 21 when this happened, and not many 21-year-olds have back pain. As I get older, all sorts of people have back pain. So, I can commiserate with my friends, but when you're 21, nobody's talking about back pain.
Yeah.
And so I became a Pilates instructor because Pilates is what helped me overcome my back pain. And a lot of it, to be frank, as I look back, was complete co-regulation that I received from my Pilates instructor at the time, who really kind of turned into a mentor for me for quite some time. I was very lucky to have her. I'm going to give a shout out to Connelly Weinberg. You can all look her up. She works on something called Mindful Spine. But it really spun out of a place of me going to doctors and the doctors saying things like, literally, I'm going to a specialist in San Francisco, a dance specialist. He looks at my x-rays and I think it was my MRI. And it was basically like, it's all in your head. I mean, literally, like it's in your head. And he didn't quite say it like that, but there's nothing here, that indicates on the there's nothing here on the MRIs or on the X-rays that show that, right? So it was basically like allopathic medicine will not help you. There's nothing here for you. And so I went to an osteopath for a long time. And meanwhile, I had dropped out of college because I couldn't sit. It was bizarre, but I couldn't sit. And no one was really helping me at the time. And I felt, kind of alone. I had been in an environment. I was at UC Irvine at the time. I was double majoring. I was getting a lot of input, a lot of excitement. And then I was back home and I was like bored as everything and in a lot of pain. And so I had no words for it because nobody spoke about it at the time, but I was essentially completely gaslit, And what did I do at 23 years old in 2002? What I did is I went to my local library and I looked for books about pain in the brain or pain. And there was nothing at the time, but there was a man named John Sarno. I don't know if it's John, but Dr. Sarno. And he was from New York and he had a book all about how pain is in your brain. So I would read this book and he basically was like, just start moving again and feel free and feel like there's no problem. And I couldn't do that. I couldn't jump from 0 to 60, even though that was his recipe for success. And so I actually spent a lot of time trying to find health support within the outside of allopathic medicine because I had seen physical therapists. Nobody could help me get out of pain. I could watch, and I hadn't found Connelly yet. And I think I'm going to share this. I've never shared this before, actually. One of the times while I was trying to get help, I went to a acupuncturist and they were far away from home. And so because there weren't a lot of acupuncturists back then, right? And I went to him and I was young and he brought out this large machine that vibrated. And he was like, we really need to relax your hip muscle. And he started going up to my groin. And I actually had to tell him to stop. That's not okay. You can't treat me like that. But again, nobody talked like that. And so here I was trying to seek help for my mental, I wouldn't say mental health at that point, but for my physical health problem. And essentially have, somebody trying to violate me.
Yeah,
right?
being accosted. Yeah. Not being clear, not asking permission.
Nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just, and to be frank, the challenge of all of that, and I never said anything. I just never went back to him. But looking back, I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only one, right? Because that's how it is. You're never the only one.
Right.
Right? You're never the only one. And so I just felt like, and to be honest, later, this chronic pain not resolving itself, not being in an environment, it actually led to me coming to a place where I was essentially depressed But people didn't talk about depression at that time. I was really not aware that I literally was depressed and didn't know I was depressed because, again, we didn't talk a lot about mental health back in the early 2000s. At least I didn't. And so what I found was becoming a business owner, having my own sense of agency, being able to help other women in pain and not accost them just felt so empowering, and I think was so deeply grounding for me as a young woman to say, yeah, I teach Pilates and I'm a business owner.
Mm.
And having that deep sense of purpose. And like, I didn't really know what I was doing. I just had a Pilates studio and taught my best and worked to be the best Pilates instructor I could absolutely be. Was really good. And I know that I made really deep connections with women who had also been essentially like blown off by allopathic medicine because their pain was not explained.
Mm-hmm.
And so my sense of entrepreneurship and business really started and came from a place of wanting to solve a problem. And it wasn't just the problem of pain, it was the problem of not being listened to, not having someone. And the only person who did get me out of pain was my Pilates instructor at the time, who was another woman. And it was really helpful for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks, first of all, for sharing, feeling safe enough to share that. There are just so many, my mind is kind of racing. There are so many components. There are so many reasons I think this is important. There's so many reasons you and I think it's important. And this, to really hold space for and create containers of safety, to explore, to be in community, but also to really learn how to honor ourselves as women or when people identifying as women and the roles that we play and the differences in our bodies and how, for me, like I could share probably lots of experiences of my own mental and physical health as a woman and how it relates to both myself as a business owner and a mentor and a coach and a parent. I mean, the thing about depression, I suffered from postpartum depression with my first child, my son, Charlie. I had no fucking clue. I didn't know. Also,
Right.
I didn't know. I've suffered for 2 years. Nobody knew. I didn't know. And, it's like, I feel like for a while I was a little bit pissed off, honestly, that nobody told me how hard it was going to be. Like, I was in a community that you're familiar with in the west coast of Sonoma County, where I had clients who were like, literally, I had a client who she came in, she worked with me for so many years, and I saw her through probably 5 pregnancies, and she was like, oh my God, giving birth and being a mother is like the most magical thing. And I would just never stop doing it. And it's like nobody said, oh, well, and the other side is this could be really hard, and not everybody has this kind of response. So I think for me, the impetus is, and we talk a lot about this in our work in general, and it's kind of a value that we hold, not kind of, it's a value we hold through Embodied Business Institute, and it's a pillar of the Elevated Entrepreneur Program, which is we are ambitious. We want a lot. We want to push against the things that we're told we have to do everything and be everything, but we actually do want a lot. And so how do we find this balance to satisfy our deep desire for leading and creating and building, and also be good parents and be good partners and be mentally and physically healthy? It's such a complex experience being a woman, and particularly being an ambitious woman. And I think one of the things I'm excited to bring to the conversation is that our female nervous system is not the same as a male nervous system. It's just not the same. And it's ruled by different things like our cycles, right? And men tend to have a higher sympathetic response than women do. And women's sympathetic nervous system response, that's the mobilized fight or flight response, changes depending on our hormonal cycle. Like, our brains perform differently So there's all of these complex nuances to how our female physiology responds to stress and responds to threat that I think is important for us to consider and to look at. And that's what I'm excited to explore and to empower women to become aware. Because I feel like, if I had the knowledge then that I have now, I think I just can recall how hard I was on myself and really how hard I have been on myself most of my life. That particularly in those phases of trying to build a business. I mean, I've been like you, as you know, an entrepreneur for 25 plus years. And I think I could have just handled it so much better. Like extended kindness and compassion to myself and made different choices and not pushed so hard, that cost me a lot. So I really am excited for this focus for the year to really support women in navigating these things. And I think primarily developing some compassion for themselves and without having to buy into the let's do nothing culture.
Right. Yeah.
This new piece that is the antithesis to the hustle culture, which is do nothing, which in my opinion is a load of shit. Like there doesn't have to be you're parked or you're going a million miles an hour, right? It doesn't have to be that. So I think my motivation comes from there is a different way. You can have all the things that you want. You can live a full and vibrant and even busy life, but it doesn't have to cost you, right? You can stay steady. You can stay kind. You can stay compassionate. And I think it's just really relevant for women because there's so much required of us, even if we're not entrepreneurial, right? In terms of our caretaking responsibilities and just what is in our nature, right? To care for and to be empathetic and all of these things. So I think that's pretty much what I wanted to share. I'm really excited. I'm excited. We have a brainstorming session on the calendar for next week around our year in the Elevated Entrepreneur, which is going to be great. And the retreat, which we're super excited about, which is called Return to Health. And we're going to drop information about both of those things in the show notes. And before we go, we wanted to also let you know about a listener only discount for Elevated Entrepreneur. So we'll drop the link for the program so you can take a look at what it entails. And then with the code EBIB1, so that stands for Embodied Business Inspired Brain, 1, you will be eligible to get your first month in the Elevated Entrepreneur for $1. So we're excited to share that with you. We'll put that information also in the show notes. And I think that's it. Anything else, Anne?
Yeah, there's one final thing. As you're listening, if you have something that you're curious about women's health and entrepreneurship, and you want us to chat about it or do some research into it or share a story with us, we would love to hear from you. You can contact us via what would be the best way for them to contact us? Yeah, so what we would love is for any of you listening throughout the course of the year, if you're thinking or curious about women's health and entrepreneurship, to be honest, I've done some digging already. And to be honest, there's not a lot out there. There's a lot of international research, which is fabulous and important, but I'm also interested and curious in women's experience in entrepreneurship in the US. Of course, if you're international, please reach out as well. But you can reach us specifically at the name of this podcast, which is Embodied Business Inspired Brain at gmail.com. So just the name of the podcast, Embodied Business Inspired Brain at gmail.com. And we read all of our emails and look forward to connecting with you.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Anne. Okay, everybody. We'll see you on the next one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.